Here is a situation, a reality of the United States government which exists, which I did not realize. Firstly, you are in a situation where the shutdown began uh, based on not having the funds for operating, and there were talks of a spending package beyond what was decided on in your bill in July, which you did not actually vote on before the shutdown. You did not give yourselves an amount in terms of this funding coming from the Federal Reserve, approving through voting in the Senate. Lastly, you did not come to an amount, and there was also at the same time information that shows that you are only requesting funds. This is not through your own finances from your Federal Reserve, but with the understanding that you're asking this money from a loan from banks in other countries to operate for a month and a half. You are not asking for the money to operate indefinitely as the government. You firstly, with the one big beautiful bill, Reconciliation Act of 2025 bill. With this, you increased your deficit budget spending, which is based on borrowed money, not your own money from the Federal Reserve. Approving that and using a spending package to fund yourselves and already displaying that you have sufficient money to operate without borrowing money. Whilst you have that reality and the non need for borrowing money, you are operating based on this bill from July active, saying that you want to operate from a deficit of borrowed money, increased from 1.4 trillion to 4 point some trillion, is now your reality as the American government, working on finances which are borrowed from banks from other countries in the amount up to 4 trillion. And you are not borrowing money from yourselves, even though you have an infinite supply in the quindecillions at least. This connecting to activities of the government, also conducting museum solicitation activities on my property, totaling 16 quindecillion, is included in that amount buried in those caves there. You have this amount of money in actuality. And on the front side, you're arguing about not having enough money, there being a national deficit in terms of the government's accounts, while at the same time you have the Federal Reserve with all this money. And the banks look at you and the situation says they will only loan you enough money for a month and a half of operations as the government. That's all you can get, right? You're not in talks of providing yourselves with, firstly, the reality that you do not have a deficit. You keep talking about a deficit when you don't have one. You want to create a deficit of furthering activities, increasing this deficit of borrowing money from other banks in other countries to operate the government when you yourselves already have the money. Oh, you're stepping back now. Now I'm getting this barren wind over here. What am I doing? Moving at the same time? What are you doing? Running away from me? Huh? Is your situation, right? You are indicating with this and on top of this other concept or reality that I realized. With these realities there, not bringing the government back into operations and not bringing it into that situation with finances. You are showing to everyone that you do not have the activities there, the possibility of bringing back the government indefinitely with sufficient finances. You are showing that you only have the possibility of borrowing money in order to have enough money to operate the government for only a month and a half more. And then from there, what? You're already displaying that you cannot come to an agreement to pull out money from the Federal Reserve and just use that to end the government shutdown. And you have like these realities that exist, and you don't want to go backwards on them even though they're not true. You don't want to expose the fact that you've been using these concepts in your situations as the government and not bring it back into normalcy and continue in this fashion while you have money. You don't want to expose the fact that the Federal Reserve actually has this supply of money, which has been contributed to it through criminal activities, which is why it's hidden in caves. And this is what you consider your money to go to as this conceptual, once you get down to it, the jukebox part of it, which people laugh at. Having government shutdown, saying you always don't have enough money, and you're producing these spending packages which create assistance for other countries in the tens of billions and the trillions now. And then you try to dumb down people's ideas of how much a trillion actually is and how much of it is like exorbitantly excessive in terms of its like existence when you provide them for whatever division or country. You get down to the exact amounts of your personnel, how much you actually need, and how much is excessive in terms of it going into an account, and what do you do with it? And on the front side, because you want to dip into it and put it in your pockets, you can't display that you have the money in terms of your assets and what you own. You have to live this front side fake reality as like a criminal, and you can't use the money that you like pocketed. That's your Federal Reserve. And the tens of millions which are in all these divisions, and you have that in their accounts while you have no personnel now. Looking like that. You're dynamic. Always lying about how much money you have and the situation of the government, and back and forthing in these House of Reps and in the House of the Senate, and in your spending packages, and then your proposals to amend the Constitution. In order to do things like what? It's all this like front side on stage like theatrics which are not real. You're like putting on a show for the world, and then in actuality, that's not what's happening in terms of your finances and your operations and what your actual objectives and intent are out there as a government. In addition to what you're doing in my situation in the backside and what's becoming of your front side. It is directly connected to your desires and objectives on my situation, and now turning into what? The main point here is you have displayed, and there's this other reality that exists, which I have not covered yet, that you do not have the feasibility to return as the operating government of the United States indefinitely anymore. You only show that you have the possibility of approving for yourselves, which you haven't been able to for the past 10 days, on any decided amount at all, with any official proposal in a meeting room. You haven't. You're making it look like you're trying to borrow money in order to operate the government for another month and a half, and you don't have it planned out from there, and you don't have that information out to the residents or in the news. It looks like you won't come back based on your situation there. That's what you have out there. It won't.